All right, I'm Bailey,
I'm Raza.
and this is Marching into Madness.
It is worth every effort.
Now, we took a little break. Things got hectic. I think the whole world stopped or something like that. Either way, we figured we would come back with something informational about that, right? So, our episode today is Pandemics Are Us. We're giving a short rundown of like some of the major events that happened in history. Because as me and Raza tend to obsess without touching back on, a lot of these situations have happened before in the past. So we wanted to break down the nitty gritty and whatnot.
And their historical significances too.
Always there are historical significance.
Always.
So to get it kicking, what we're going to start with is the big bad yellow fever. All right. Now it is not named racistly, or is it? Or we shall find out.
I had to Google that. I had to Google that just to make.
Oh, the yellow fever, much more simply, was named after the yellow tinge your skin gets as a result of the liver failure that this viral infection causes. It was first found in 1647 and was not actually publicly declared until 1648 when some Spanish slave traders found that it was destroying their commodities that they were horribly trading.
Whatever they were doing.
And the Mayan population, they called it blood vomit because, well, I mean, you'd be doing a lot of that. And then by 1744, they coined the term yellow fever, which is what actually makes it more scary because that means it's almost 100 years it took for them to not only figure out what it was, but figure out how it was killing people and then slap a name on it. So be thankful that we were able to do it in a matter of months, I would say.
And they had to change the name of it because people were not drinking a certain beer.
I don't think they changed the name because of that, but whatever. That's a debate for another day.
All right. Anyway, so how it spreads? It goes through the female mosquitoes who get infected, and when they mate, it just gets even worse. The net gets wider, and warmer climates also help the spread too because there's more mosquitoes, more humidity, and they're biting your shit. Yeah, blanked out there. So
That's okay.
sorry. Let's get it. It's also it also doesn't spread from human to human. So like if you get coughed on, you're okay. Now the big one, deforestation and the creation of sugar plantations make it easier for this to spread. There are more people in those sugar plantations, and they're in the warmer weather, and there's mosquitoes in the warmer weather, and bam, 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 you have a plague on your hands. That kind of rhymed. And then during the I always have a hard time with this word, Neoplatonic World Wars. Soldiers were hit hard in the Caribbean than the one in Canada. Well, because the Caribbeans are where? Warmer climate. Tropics. Yeah, there you go. I hate this. And Jamaica, which is also in the tropics, it was much more likelier to get infected there than it was in colder climates. Also, I hate his name.
Neoplatonic.
No, Napoleon.
Monsieur Bonaparte.
That guy. He sent soldiers to Haiti to help in the war because there's a war against the Spanish people, not Spanish people, but Spain and France, right? Mr. History, man.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Uh, uh, there was a war during that time. He sent a lot of soldiers, but 30 to 45,000 killed by the virus. So that's a big deal. And the remaining soldiers just came back with their tails between their legs because they were sick. So that's a good reason why. Yeah.
Yeah. And what is interesting about the soldiers and these colonies as we bring up Bonaparte and the world as a whole, surprisingly, this somehow back then made it over to North America. Right? All the grubby hands of the Europeans did much more than just damage the economic surface of our globe. They somehow transferred diseases to a whole new world.
Like how Trump says these Mexicans bring over diseases, right? Now look what happened back then. The Europeans were doing that. Yeah.
Exactly. So even though America does not necessarily have the high tropic conditions that this disease fully needed to thrive, it was still warm enough to make it one of the epicenters of yellow fever. Most importantly, we got good old Philadelphia.
You know, I love that segue. That's a good segue. Yeah. I'm like, why are you specifically doing America? I'm like, oh, wait a second.
And so it hit Philadelphia in 1668. And this is where the epicenter for America was. Now, it took a couple of years for it to get around the country, and there were pandemics elsewhere, but this is where it was the worst. This is where you're going to see all of the terrifying old school lithographs from the era and all those weird, disgusting images of Renaissance paintings of similar to Black Plague, actually, but not as romantically told throughout history. And then,
Yeah.
sorry, sir.
I was gonna say the Black Plague is more like oral history. You would have to really be there to understand it. The yellow fever, they were recording it.
Mm, okay, okay. That was one of the interesting dynamics of it because this was the first one that people really started to realize through the yellow fever that densely populated areas are more prone to contracting this illness and can become epicenters that are going to spread to larger parts of your populace as a whole. So this is when people started to realize the unsanitary conditions may be breeding these diseases or plagues.
Especially in third world countries where enmities and stuff like that are considered a commodity there.
Mhm. Well, and keep in mind, America at the time definitely was.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Additionally, much like many modern diseases, this one was spread through skeeters, good old mosquitoes, right? So, this was one of the first cases of that, and it is one of the most dangerous forms of transmission because a mosquito sucks blood from almost any red-blooded mammal, so
Yeah.
that makes us very susceptible to getting contaminated with the disease.
Symptoms of the fever are lack of appetite, nausea, muscle pain, and pain in the back, along with headaches and fevers. It's weird. I was looking this up, and I noticed a lot of the viruses that happen in the world, headaches and fevers and joint pain are the common symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Those are minor symptoms, but they come back a few days later with a vengeance. From abdominal pain to liver damage, which causes the skin to get yellow, hence why it's called yellow fever, and a kidney bleeding leading to death. So it's a good time. Climate change and people becoming less immune and people living in centers are some of the reasons why the fever's numbers are going up. In 2013, there were 127,000 cases and 445,000 deaths. It's kind of a big number. That happened.
That's just absurd, man. I can't.
That, and that didn't happen not too long ago. However, 90% of these cases came from Africa. Nearly a billion people in the world live in populated areas like capital cities and stuff. They, those same billion people live in the area where the yellow fever itself is common.
Mm-hmm.
And to 50% of the people who get the fever will die, and it affects any age group. So,
Yeah, and bringing that up, like he's saying, affecting any age group, and all the way through till just 2013, there was 45,000 deaths. The scary, the scary part about this. All right, so we brought it up. It started in the 1600s. It wasn't until the 19th century that they even came up with the idea of a vaccine for it. So by 1927, they were able to start creating and isolating the necessary factors that they need for making a vaccine. Now, these are the fancy pants words that I don't know, but I find it scary and intriguing because that's like, we're worried now about a couple months. Shit was hundreds of years that they had to deal with the yellow fever. So after
unless
dealing with this for hundreds of years, that by 1938, the first series of vaccines were administered and given to kids under the age of 12 in order to build immunity. If you live in a first world or second world country, you'll notice all the fucking needles you got to give your little kiddos. That's the yellow fever is one of them. So the vaccine was called 17D and is safe, but it has had deaths related to its side effects.
it's
But when we're
safe,
talking,
but it has deaths.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
the funny part during that. People have died from it, but it is safe.
yeah, but talking about like any sort of infectious disease is like the vaccine is a couple people end up dying,
Yeah,
unfortunately, which is not a good thing, but it's unfortunately how the world works.
I know.
And then, so
You can't. You're gonna die out there.
I mean that was uncomfortable as all hell. So this was developed in South Africa by I gotta check this one. Max Th- Thaler.
Taylor, yeah.
So this was developed in South Africa by Max Thaler, who won a fucking Nobel Prize in 1951 for his contributions.
It's
Which,
significant. He's significant because he was one of the first black people to do that.
well, if you put that in my script, that would have been very nice. So
I'm
one of the
so
first black Nobel Prize winners was actually a gentleman who took us out of yet another pandemic situation. So it was first used on soldiers in Brazil. Did I read that right? This vaccine was first implemented in Brazil, where it actually saved 1 million lives, and then following that, it was given it to soldiers headed into World War II. Now,
Wow.
the script says, "World." How would it be World War One if the vaccine was only made in 1927?
Oh yeah, good call. Good call.
That's
I
what I was.
you know what? No, scratch that part out. Now I'm not even sure.
All right, fuck it then.
So, as my co-host Bailey said, there are people have died from the vaccine, but that's not the yeah, that's a big deal, but that isn't one of the main issue. Yeah, okay, it is a main issue, but it isn't the only issue.
I thought so.
Scientists have said a 60-year-old vaccine might not slow down or stop the infection, and that it should create and that they should create a new one, which makes sense because the yellow fever one day could mutate, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
have to keep the vaccines up to date. So it makes their fears coming from a justified place. If someone is infected, there's really no treatment for it. Once you have it, you have it. But they should be treated with supportive care and watched extremely closely. As of April 20th, 2020, this year, there is an outbreak in Sudan because of COVID 19 already stressing on the poor healthcare
Mm-hmm.
system there. Sudan is getting ravaged hard. Um, there have they have experienced several outbreaks in the past, and the deadliest one was in 2003 with 178 cases and 23 deaths. I'm not sure why I'm clapping at that. That's a bad thing. Uh, that is
Again, man, I just want to go back to emphasizing that it's incredible that in 2020, after all these hundreds of years, this is still happening. So let's buckle up, buckaroos, because we got a ride ahead of us.
I'm just thinking in 2020 we still have these ones, and they're never going away at any time.
I know, I know. So let's just not get too dark on our own show here.
I know, I know. All right, so next one is the Spanish flu. Now, the Spanish flu is one of the actually the biggest pandemic. It started in the way back in time in the 1800s, I
Mhm.
think. Yes, yes. 1800s, late 1800s to early 1900s to be more specific. And it has some very long-lasting impacts, which Bailey will start to get us into right now.
So, the
Why are we
Spanish flu
laughing
is
at me?
considered one of the deadliest flus in history. It affected 500 million people worldwide, and that's about 1/3 of the world's entire population at the time. So, we're talking pandemics like it was a serious gosh darn pandemic, and that's before you had a global traveling industry like we do nowadays. So, it was by old school boat. On top of the 500 million, it actually wiped away, which is phrasing that confuses the hell out of me. It wiped out about this 20 to 50 million
Wiped
people
out. I
worldwide.
don't know. Yeah.
So think the population of all of Canada at minimum, all gone because of the Spanish flu. So no one knows exactly where it started, but the irony, especially when we're looking at Trump trying to name flus after regions, right? The Spanish flu, actually, they're starting to think that it might have derived from the United States, specifically Kansas. Now, they don't know exactly. It's still a big old mystery we're trying to solve here, but a lot of factors point there.
Yes. Wait, did you say Canada or Kansas?
Kansas.
Oh, Kansas. Okay.
You
Huh.
didn't read that? I was just reading about that the other day.
I didn't even know that.
Funny how Trump's trying to call it the China disease, the
China
China
virus.
flu. So he uses
Okay.
the Spanish flu as a defense. But if you look it up, there's a lot of they point heavily that it came to like some corn crops in Kansas.
Oh shit. Okay. I didn't even know that. Well, the more you know, right? Yeah.
The
Is
more
it
you know. Facts. So the strangest thing about this flu in specific, like comparably to most plagues, is it targeted and affected heavily healthy and young people, which is a big change because normally it's affecting people who are either immunocompromised, of the elderly age, or have pre-existing health conditions of some sort. In World War One, there were as many soldiers being there, as many, if not more, soldiers being killed by the Spanish flu than the war itself. If I'm correct, the death toll of World War One was only 10 million. Um,
10 million? Only 10 million? He said that. Oh, it was just only 10 million.
but I mean, comparing it to 50 million from a flu
Yeah, you're right.
changes the context a
I
little.
know.
So at least 40% of the US Navy and 36% of the US Army at the time became ill, right? Which makes sense math wise, because I mean, like out of 300 million, that's percentages game, right?
And they're in
and
tight
and then it
spaces too.
made things worse when they had to go to Europe to fight World War One, to fight World War Two, and you would have to pack into tight boats, tight planes, tight trains, in very unsanitary conditions. Because I mean, they're soldiers, bro. Like in World
Yeah.
War One, they're
All
just
they
doing
care
what they
about is
gotta.
guns and stuff. Yeah.
That fucking trench foot, man. I mean, they're standing in mud for days as it
And
is.
shell shock. They have other things to worry about. Like dying. Well, they're gonna
If
die
only they
first.
understood what PTSD actually was.
Yeah, that's true. Now we have the scary half of the scary stuff out of the way. But wait. There's more. Uh, now, even though it's estimated to have killed up to 500 million people, but that number can be much higher because of the lack of recording. Now, this is the part that surprised me a little bit because I was an idiot going into this. It was first called the Spanish flu not because it came from Spain, which it didn't. It was first reported in Spain.
Mhm.
Reported in Spain. However, the reason why it's called a Spanish flu is because during World War One, both sides of the war were trying to, or yeah, both sides of the war were trying to keep up morale. Uh, and if there was any sort of news on this, they would be like, "Oh, we're gonna die," and they would be all scared to fight or something. And Spain was neutral in World War One, I believe, and they allowed free press and reported on it. Uh, the first reported cases, although happened in 1918, which weren't in Spain. Allied countries and the Central Powers censored the Spanish flu because, again, morale for the war. So when Spain began reporting on it, people just assumed it came
Mhm.
from Spain. Right? Like people assume I'm white. Uh,
Mhm.
it was it was called the French flu at some point. I think that was for like to deflect, keep the negativity away from us.
Mhm.
They were just name calling. Um, and Spain Spain was also the hardest hit, much like COVID-19. Wait, no, that's Italy. Both places have confused me. But the King Alfonso, hey, uh,
It's
whatever that
Italian,
number.
bro.
Oh, okay. Now I'm just being racist towards Spanish people and Italian
Yeah,
people.
yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
I'm so sorry. Uh, I'm not actually. Um, Alf. What number is that? Alfonso the what?
The 13th.
13. I knew it was the 13th. Apparently contracted it too.
Oh,
So,
poor Alfonso.
hey, I gotta stop that.
You did it again.
I have Italian friends and Spanish friends, so I can't like I know the plight.
You're gonna end up getting yourself in mad trouble then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
We had a talk before that scientists they're still trying to decipher it. It seems like it came from Kansas, but as Roz also pointed out, for a while it was called the French flu. They were kind of just naming it regionally where the biggest outbreaks were. Now, some people believe what got it overseas, either way, whether from North America to Europe or vice versa, was through all of the military ships, right? Like you got to transfer all these troops. One of them could be a healthy carrier of it, and then all of a sudden you got a whole squad full of mans infected.
And that is the quickest way how it spreads.
Oh, yeah, I'm not surprised by that. In March 1918, 84,000 soldiers were headed across the Atlantic, followed by another 118,000. So imagine sending like some sort of, let's say you've got tainted grain, and you're trying to send like a little. I want to send a whole big ship full of grain over to Europe to pay my European masters, right? If there's one little piece of grain in there that's got disease on that boat, it's gonna infect it all, right? So same thing happens with people, and I am now terrified of getting on a boat.
I'm just seasick in general, so don't ask me to get on a plane.
When it first spread and was starting to kill people, the biggest issue was people didn't really know how or why. Not only did they not have a vaccine, they didn't understand how it was affecting the human body. And it wasn't until the 1940s that they were actually able to create a vaccine, and even then, the supply of it was very hard to distribute internationally, especially when we're talking about the global crises that are the world wars,
Yeah.
right? And that is actually what kind of contributed to the effort of it possibly getting worse because of all of these military camps. As we mentioned before, that's a lot of humans packed into tight quarters. So even as people were coming back home, war efforts were slowing down, that doesn't necessarily mean the conditions are going to be safer. All those nurses, all the healthcare workers helping with the military effort could be carrying the disease back.
Yeah.
So, as the war was winding down, many of the hospitals back in North America, whether Canada or the States, were already packed with the Spanish flu victims. So, it was a very tense time, much like now, even though it was the early 19th century, their healthcare system couldn't handle it either.
Yeah, and with all the technology we have now, it's just making it harder. Not harder, but we're still not fully grasping
Mm-hmm.
what's out on our hands
I agree.
right now. It's Brit. There are there are a lot of parallels between Spanish flu and what's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're gonna hear in this section, uh,
Mm-hmm.
school buildings and other private buildings were turned into makeshift hospitals because the real ones became overcrowded.
Yeah.
Some of these makeshift hospitals were led by student doctors and weren't the best ones. Like now, most communities close down public spaces like schools, churches, and anywhere where people much again like now officials order self quarantine, which is what we're all in right now. Impose bans on social interactions and apparently spitting because that was a big thing, or is still a big thing. And libraries halted lending books. And again, like now, people were also told to wear masks.
Oh yeah, and imagine that back then. Imagine trying to convince a bunch of people before they even had a concept of what germs were appropriately to like practice social distancing. I'm at that asking them to not rent a book. That's like saying you can't watch Netflix while you're stuck inside.
Literally, yeah. Yeah, and now that now to think of it, TV wasn't a thing till like 20 or 30 years later, right? So
Yeah,
their
like the
only source of
radio was just starting, and you wouldn't have a radio in your home.
yeah, and their only source of and yeah, or those big ass radios.
Yeah, well, you'd say it'd have to be a middle class family to be able to afford a radio. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a bug in my room, and it is.
But so me, my turn, my turn.
Yes, it is your turn.
Okay. So just like we have now, we got bylaw officers. Maybe it actually could be different for every city near you, but with me already getting into fights with several of the bylaw officers.
Really?
I got well, one of them. I got snippy with another. Just like our current situation, where our government has to come in and actually start issuing tickets if we don't follow these rules. They would issue you public warnings that are saying you are in violation of the sanitary code. So I thank God we don't have a sanitary code nowadays, because that would be Jesus. Things are strict as it is. With no cure set when they first found this. So they didn't know how it affected you, they didn't know why it affected you, and it was getting all these young and healthy people. Doctors started administering aspirin as a cure. So now, aspirin, though, it was found in 1889, and the patent ran out in 1918. So just like the pharma bros of nowadays, people were ready to make their goddamn money off of it. So the Martin Shkreli's of the 19th century, as soon as the patent expired, they all hopped on offering non-Bayer made aspirin. Now, at first, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but much like counterfeit medicines, all the shit you can order from China nowadays, you
It
couldn't
wasn't really
verify
counterfeit.
the contents of the medicine you were getting. So this led to a lot of very bad cases of aspirin poisoning, because
Yes.
it's just as bad for your liver as becoming an alcoholic, which many people don't know. So some symptoms of aspirin poisoning include hyperventilation, pulmonary edemas, the buildup of fluid in the lungs, and it is now recently believed that many of the deaths occurring from flus in that era, not only the Spanish flu, were actually attributed to this aspirin poisoning, as it would fill your lungs up with mucus and all sorts of nasty stuff. So much like the COVID, you would get so mucusy that your body can't handle breathing appropriately anymore. It's scary how each one of these diseases we're reviewing has similarities in terms of
Yeah,
their symptoms and how it
and it
affects
shows
people.
like how our immune system can't handle these things.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing another thing to your point, most medical experts recommended 30 grams per day, by the way, which in today's world is considered toxic and can cause aspirin poisoning.
Oh yeah, because I didn't think that. Okay, so then that yes, you are correct. That is the point that I missed. They were over prescribing it, and that's what caused it. Yes. Thank you for clarifying, good sir. I'm googling something on film right now. How much is in a normal? How much is in an aspirin pill? So
I
your typical aspirin now is 325 milligrams, right? So if that's 325 milligrams and they were recommending 30 grams, that's 100 times.
they were ODing these motherfuckers, man.
That's absurd.
Just
A
pick
hundred
one. Fine,
times.
let's go with one.
Good luck, boy. Flush that system out. You hear? And when you get your wife pregnant, make sure she smokes lots of cigarettes.
The flu took a heavy toll on people, wiping away entire families, leaving parents without kids and kids without parents. Funeral parlors became overwhelmed, and people began burying their own dead. The flu also affected the economy, in which businesses were shut down because many people became sick. And we're literally seeing this happening right now. Nobody can go to work because we're trying to not spread the virus. In the US, basic services like mail delivery and garbage collecting were hit too because workers got sick from coming to work. Farm work was also hit as they didn't have enough people working on the crops. Local health departments, state and federal departments closed as well, and that didn't help. Less people working, less money going in, less people eating too. So everything was all connected, like now.
Mm-hmm.
So
And just like that, as we're touching on now, these similarities are astonishing, because as we mentioned before, with cramming all the soldiers together, by the second wave of Spanish flu came by the summer of 1918, when the soldiers were actually returning from the war. They were infected and spread into the general population across North America. So it was up to the mayors to improvise the plans to safeguard their local populace. So actually, funny enough, surprising that that coincides with what's going on in the states right now. That they're
yeah,
kind of leaving it up to the states and cities' own devices to be able to figure out how to handle this.
yeah. And Trump is like, open up. We need people working.
Yeah, but I think it's evidenced by this, by history, and why we're making the video. It may not be the smartest idea to do that, because the more people you're cramming through a border, the more infections you're gonna cause.
Yeah. For
Because
example, Doug Ford opening up right now is one of the worst things to do. A second wave is imminent now because of all the because people want to golf. So yeah,
yeah, and in this context, the reason to open up early, the reason to get things moving early, was the war. The war was a calamitous world war that people were distracted from how serious this virus was, because there's so much other shit was going on in the world. And if we're not careful, Our current pandemic can be played down in much the same way by focusing on the economic effects of the situation. Or
Yes.
who knows, maybe Trump's fucking theatrics on TV. But I guess we'll
I think
see in 4 months
that's
when
true.
it's election
Yeah.
time. Um, and
Biden
then,
2020.
as a daunting example of this, as a result of this second wave, in 10 days, and again, think this is 1918 time, the population is significantly decreased, right? So in 10 days, Philadelphia lost between 1,000 and 200,000 people in one city. One city. That's fucking
And look,
terrifying.
and less than 2 weeks too. That's the other scary part.
Like, Jesus Christ, imagine the graveyards.
I know, dude. Oh my god, this morbid shit going on.
And finally, by March 1918, at the nearing the end of that second wave, nearly 15,000 people were confirmed dead.
That oh, can you just imagine like being in that time, not having like tests, not having any recording system, and not having any uh apparatus to help glide it through? If you had it, you're almost a goner.
Yeah, I was watching a video about the French Revolution and thinking that because like they knew like back then too it'd be even more terrifying because they knew enough that they would know when these plagues were sweeping across the world, right?
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
watching it on the French Revolution, and part of Napoleon's thing is he knew the plague was coming again. So like they had to fucking figure out how they were gonna get their shit together to go to war because it's like the 18th 17th century. They have no protective measures. They just know, oh, this disease is gonna come and kill probably a quarter of us. So let's fucking hurry up and get shit done before
Yeah,
it
like
hits.
we need to take over half of Europe because of this pandemic.
Yeah, it's just yeah. In those days, I was thinking it was just yeah, the fear of no wonder Black Death became such a religious phenomenon
Oh
because
yeah.
it was religious in a way. It was this invisible thing
Enemy.
killing people that no one had any concept of why or how.
Yeah. And like um it it like and people didn't think it came from rats and stuff. That that's why it's now it's associated to rats. But people thought it was the wrath of God, essen-
Mhm.
essentially, and that didn't really help out as much because they were praying more and learning about the disease much less.
It's true.
Uh, Citizens of San Francisco were fined $5. Oh my God, $5 for
That's a lot of money back then, though.
yeah,
You
but
think nickel for like milk type shit, right?
oh my God, dude, and gas for like what, less than a dollar?
Yeah, oh
Not
yeah,
gas.
wait, fucking gas would have been like 10 cents, eight
Oh
cents type
yeah,
shit.
Jesus Christ. If you had $100, you were living large. Is what I'm
Oh
saying.
hell yeah, oh yeah, $5 is like probably a month's wage back then. I bet you.
Oh, damn, that's terrible. But if we were caught, if they were caught spitting in a public space without a mask, they were charged that money and charged with disturbing the peace.
Oh
So
my god.
the sick who experience such typical sy- symptoms as chills, fevers, and fatigue usually recovered after several days. Much like COVID-19, you just got to be in quarantine for 2 weeks and it goes away in most cases. And the number of deaths, the number of people who died from those symptoms were pretty low. By the end of 1919, the flu came to an end. People either died or became immune to it. In 2008, nearly 90 years after the flu, scientists found out why it was so deadly. It's because the lungs and the bronchial tubes were so weak that it allowed the lungs to be filled up with liquid, much like what with the aspirin. was doing. Since 1918, other deadly flus have come and gone, but nothing has been on the same level as the Spanish flu. From 1957 to 56, it killed at least 2 million people worldwide. And then in another flu a decade later killed 1 people
One
worldwide.
people.
1 million people worldwide.
Like
It killed just one dude. He got fucked up. No,
it's a pretty fucking notable person.
yeah. Who the hell was that one person? Is
But that's I knew the research was done later, but not 90 years later. Jesus.
yeah. Well, because like, yeah, yeah. I just, I just figured, well, because the Spanish flu hasn't left us, right? And now there are, it's the flu essentially, and we discover the more it's around, the more we discover about it, which is what I believe is going to happen for COVID.
Yeah, so leaning into that is the scary part of this, right? When the Spanish
Boy,
flu. What?
oh boy.
Oh boy! Oh boy! Because when this first came out, much like we're worried about now with COVID, the symptoms of the Spanish flu could be as simple as a cold, right? It was generally seen as very mild, and the sick weren't necessarily always bunched into being as ill with the Spanish flu. And this is what helped perpetuate future problems. Because just as we're worried that might occur with COVID, or possibly can if we don't safely relaunch our society, quote unquote, um, a second highly contagious strain of it could come along. And that's exactly what happened with the Spanish flu, right? So later in the fall of the 1918, the same year of the major first breakout, the second one came around, and literally within hours of developing symptoms, some of the patients were dying. So because we didn't take it seriously the first time, because it was just another thing swept under the rug as just yet another issue we got to deal with, it got pushed to the side and came back even stronger, which is goddamn scary because now in 2020 we face an exactly the similar fucking issue right now, right? Like in just 1 year of the Spanish flu existing, the average life expectancy of Americans plummeted by a dozen. So by 12
That's
years, the average life expectancy fell. And I'm terrified that if we're not careful, the exact same thing could happen. So as much as we're going through here fear mongering, the idea is to learn from the past and take on the
essentially,
seriousness
yeah.
of.
You want to be prepared more because now we have the tools and the knowledge of what happened in the past, right? We've no excuse now, essentially.
Because I genuinely believe we got a little too cozy in our modern era with our internet and fucking social media platforms and everything. People forgot about crises like this being literally around the corner, as we saw.
Please sponsor us, though.
I'm down with it. I'm down with the sponsor. But so, third and last is one that's actually probably going to be on a lot of the internet people's minds here. We got the good old deadly Ebola.
You missed a point on the last one.
Oh, I missed a point.
Good. Okay, now go.
So, next on our list and final, the last one we want to review here in terms of pandemics is one that's probably on your mind as internet bearing folks, Ebola. It's been around a lot longer than you think. It's a lot more complicated than you think, and it's just another one of those diseases to add to the list that's been around a lot longer than you know.
And then you fucking know. Now,
Yeah.
now Ebola is a rare and deadly disease that affects humans and non-human primates, so monkeys, and is
Okay, I was
located.
gonna say.
Just no, I just because our viewers may not know what non-human primates are.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
So, and it's located in sub-Saharan Africa. People get infected by an infected animal or a sick or dead person that has had it. It was first discovered in the 1970s near Ebola River, hence the name. Since it has hit Africa at an unprecedented rate, right? So 70s, it's just been decimating the population. That and this has caused many outbreaks in several different countries and stuff. Like the other viruses, scientists have no idea how it's started, but the best gets can come from bats, monkeys, or other animals.
What's the best guess? Why is it the best guess?
It's because, as I said earlier, uh, you can get bitten by a infected monkey or an infected bat or an infected animal, and then you can be a carrier.
As the destroyed segue is brought up, it was first assumed that it spreads through direct contact from one infected to another. However, the thing about Ebola is it can be spread through a dead person, unfortunately. So a person coming in contact with the infected fluids of another
It was
deceased
first.
person. Oh, that's where you're trying to slip in. Okay, all right. My bad. The virus, this one, Ebola, it infects you through the membrane of your skin, but can also enter through any of your orifices, so your mouth, eyes, nose, and I'm sure elsewhere. Because another way
The
is
butthole.
sexual contact and bodily fluids. And this is even if the other person has recovered from it. So once again, we're talking about a serious disease in society that can be carried by people who may not be aware that they have it. So let's fucking highlight that with bright lights. And then say that the deadliest outbreak of Ebola, even though it was found in the 70s and likely existed prior to that, the deadliest outbreak was the one that we all know about that happened between 2014 and 2016, which happened in West Africa specifically. Now, burial ceremonies became much more complicated and were a very interesting event. I don't understand what this point means. Oh, okay. With that most recent outbreak, 2014 to 2016, something that they didn't know right away was the fact that it is transmitted, as we mentioned before, from deceased bodies. So, as people were holding burial ceremonies from the casualties of this event, those cadavers were actually passing on the disease even more. So, as people were holding burial ceremonies, it wasn't necessarily being done in the most sanitary manner.
So much like the opposite of what Bailey was talking about, pregnant women can carry the virus and recover from it, but they may still have it through their breast milk or other pregnancy related fluids. This poses a risk to the baby and others since since the virus can spread from just the babies, all the liquid around the baby when it comes out. Women who became pregnant after surviving the Ebola disease are not at risk, but they should still be careful. If a woman who has recovered wants to breastfeed, she can, but she needs to be closely watched.
These stats always interest me because it's like scary. Imagine having to be the doctor that has to document all the details to put these puzzle pieces together.
Yeah. He's probably so desensitized to it. He goes home and like drinks a nice scotch and like, yeah, it's got to do it all over again.
Yeah, just all over again, count all the pregnant women that got infected and figure out why.
Why? Yeah. Are you having sex with people who are infected, like we told you not to?
Oh, God. So then this is the difference between Ebola and the diseases that we were talking about previously, the yellow fever and the Spanish flu, is that it actually has a 50% fatality rate. So it can kill you very quickly and easily because the incubation period is 2 to 21 days. So that's less than a month. You have to be aware that you have it, let alone share it with others. And we're talking about second and third world countries like West Africa being a primary victim of this disease. It's very hard to distribute the appropriate healthcare equipment to manage a pandemic like this on time. So, even though the period is 2 to 21 days, you become highly infectious in that. And it can spread like wildfire through a community, like no problem. The symptoms of this, they include headaches, sore muscles, sore throats, fever, and those are just the mild symptoms, right? And again, if we can look back at the yellow fever, Spanish flu, and even now COVID, looks similar again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right? Now, the most severe of these symptoms being vomiting, diarrhea, rashes all over your body, liver, and your kidney begin to shut down. And isn't this the most that this is the one that people like to throw on the news and all the scary images? It can actually cause uncontrollable bleeding from your eyeballs as well as your gum line. And apparently, Raza has informed me of this cute little fact. You can also find it in your stool. So you're gonna
Why am I
literally
laughing
have
at that?
this. So Ebola probably out of this list the most terrifying. You're half 50% chance of going to die. You've got 3 weeks to figure out you've got it. You got to stay the fuck away from everybody. And even if you do live, there's a chance you're gonna bleed out all the holes in your body.
Yeah, and shit blood.
Fuck. No, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't want to be human anymore.
Neither do I, bro. That's gross. So now moving over to what it does to the body. Labs that have tested on Ebola, the the labs that tested on the infected blood have low white blood cell count and elevated liver enzyme. That makes sense because when you get Ebola, your b- b- body gets slower and slower to fight the disease. An experimental vaccine for Ebola was created in 2014, which has been proven to be good and fighting like effective against the virus. In 2015, the first major trial began in Kenya. The vaccine called RVSV-ZEBOV. A real, it comes off the tongue, man. Can you
Oh,
remember that? In post, bro, put that on the screen. I want people to see that. This the vaccine was studied in a trial involving over 11,000 people. Among those people, over 5,000 people received the vaccine and were cured. No Ebola cases were recorded 10 days or more after the vaccination. In comparison, there were 23 days or more after the, the vaccination of who with people who didn't get the vaccine. So at that point, they were like saying, "Hey, we will give the vaccine to these people and say it so these other people don't get it. Let's see if the body can take care of itself, or let's see if our vaccine can expedite the process." So there is yet no treatment proven for Ebola
mm-hmm.
when you get it. However, a range of potential treatments, including blood products, immune therapies, and drug therapies, are currently being looked at as signs to your help you be Ebola ridden when you get Ebola. That makes sense.
Be rid of the Ebola when
Be
you have.
rid of the Ebola.
You got one last point?
You have one last point.
Oh, yes, I do. Because all that said that Raza gave you, if you're infected, you got no cure. The vaccine is only to prevent it. So, however, there's supportive care. They can rehydrate you. They can give you oral or intravenous fluids, as well as treat the specific symptoms so that your body has more of a chance for survival. But again, you're treating the symptoms. You're not actually curing what's going on here. So
Yeah.
again, it's just fucking daunting, the idea
Yeah.
of Ebola. Like, yeah, so no, you have to pray to God you're going to be able to get your kid a vaccine in time because you don't know if it's around
Why am I
you.
laughing?
I don't know, man. Oh, my brain.
Yeah, seriously, what Billy said, like you have to in these third world countries, it's either you or someone else. Like it's a do or die world and stuff. So it's here. There's a little more control and it's a more equal playing field. But I feel for these third world countries, like Pakistan right now is having a hard time tackling this COVID-19 because places and cities are so congested, and the people cannot afford healthcare and afford things to help them be treated of these diseases.
Oh man, and I can only imagine the tensions with India. We as Canadians are stressed about Americans being able to come over the border. Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
yeah.
The
I think
Pakistanis hate the Indians, and there's a billion of them.
there's a billion of us, yeah, or no, Indians. I mean, but yeah, like yeah, it's just like they're like just adding on that they're more concerned about Kashmir than COVID. Nothing.
So drifting away from Raza's cultural fucking conflictions, uh, we picked these diseases because look, if we look back, we've got the yellow fever that was around for hundreds of years until people even got their heads wrapped around how to deal with it or what it was doing. Then we've got the Spanish flu that it took about 50 years for them to figure out any sort of vaccine. And even then, it was only in 2013, 2014 they figured out why it was killing people. Like,
Yeah.
it was 80 to 60 years after the case for them to figure out how it even worked. And then we've got Ebola, the modern version of an infectious disease, showing how serious these symptoms and conditions can be. So we're going from like slow release to medium release to fast acting, right?
Yeah.
So that I think those were all like great examples to help paint the terrifying direction of this current situation.
I still think we should have done the Black Plague, but there was so much like I couldn't. It was all super general.
And I feel like if we were doing that, you would have to do a whole separate episode just because of
Yeah.
all the hype around the Black Peg.
So
Because
speaking of,
what?
like, it's, we could be teasing some.
Hey, you never know. You never know. You never know. That is a good content idea.
But yeah, go on with what you were saying.
These three diseases in specific, I think they help paint a better picture of how we deal with it societally. Because even if it was 100, 200 years ago, a lot of these were handled with modern thought processes in contrast to the Black Plague. So I thought personally that these were a great way to paint a picture of how it would be handled by society now because we were joking and conceptualizing although the Black Plague was very serious, it was seen as like more of a religious endeavor because of the lack of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So these are three different conditions that were all approached with people knowing they were flu-like conditions and yet they still couldn't find a solution.
And it's also in like I I look at these past pandemics as the framework of what we need to do or what future societies need to do, right? We're just adapting, like we're not really like looking at the past because as as cliche as this sounds, our answers are in the past, right? So if we look and be like, oh, this is what uh, America did in 1918 to have the second wave, maybe we should do the opposite of of that, since what we're dealing with now has the same characteristics as that, right? So
Mhm.
like we just need to like if we look at what we've dealt with, we can overcome this, no
Mhm.
problem. But we live in a super complicated time now, unfortunately. That
Yeah.
when people have a boner for going to work, apparently, I've never seen any. America is the only country I read somewhere. America is the only country in the world making COVID-19 uh, a a
Labor rights issue.
no like a political point. Like it's like COVID-19 is impending on their like like amendments. Like we have the right to fucking do whatever we want.
Okay,
Doctors.
then I would amend what you're saying and agree with you. I feel like America's the only one that made it a civil rights issue. I feel like it's a political issue in many places, but I haven't really seen it be a civil rights issue anywhere else.
It is a civil rights issue in America, but it's also a political issue. I find because like
I
half the country wants to go back to work, right? And they're more. How can I word this? They're more like so they more want to uh I forgot where I was going with that. But
But wouldn't it also like that's I'm just disagreeing with the fact that like I feel like it would be a political issue in many other countries as well.
well, not is it a political issue here? No, not really, because we're all like cooperating. We're all listening to what's like who knows, like the scientists and
Yeah,
whatnot.
we
There,
are we are a cohesive population as Canadians, but people are still bickering about when this should be open.
governor or the premier's like house or whatever rallying, be like, uh, we will vote you out if you don't pass this bill, which would let us go to work, right?
Okay, touche. You got a point.
Yeah, so like it's and like Trump is making it also a political thing too. Like he's doing the blame game right now and stuff.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, a million Americans are over a million are now affected, and it's like so I yeah, it's interesting how they're dealing with it, like as like as as a it's going to be used in the election.
Oh yeah, well it has to. That's inevitable. But either way, what are your closing notes on infectious diseases? Pandemics are us.
Well, they're here to stay, as I said at the end of every episode we have, but it's true to it's true here. You can get them. You can just get them anytime, anywhere, any age group. Just call the number, and the people over at Pandemics R Us will deliver a virus for your kid to play with. And yeah, it's messed up, but let's hopefully 2021 or 2022 will be a better and more giving year for us.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I think you hit all the bullet points. So once again, thank you, audiences listening to this worldwide interwebs. We are marching into madness. We took a quick break there because of Sid Pandemics or us, but we're going to be coming at you, hitting you hard. We got assets coming out soon. Check the links in the descriptions for some very cool stuff. My name is Bayley Nargang. You can find me on Instagram at gnarly gnarley_media, gnarly underscore media. And what about you, my good man, Raza?
Okay, so let's just get some things right here. I don't know why Bailey is going on a rant here, but you can find me down uh, below on my socials, and then Bailey will put my socials here too, so you can just hit the link here. On Twitter, Instagram, my Facebook. No, yeah, I don't have one anymore. But Twitter and Instagram, and pretty soon we will be having a Discord. I know we say it every episode, but we're right now learning how to navigate it. Well, not navigate, but how to use it, implement it, and yeah, we'll see you soon. Be safe, everyone. Uh, yeah,
Remember the lessons that history taught us.
exactly. And be respectful to your elders, but fuck the man.
All right,
All right.
I'm content with that.